Shyness can feel like a maze of hidden corridors, each twist and turn leading to fresh layers of anxious self-consciousness. It can rest as softly as a whisper under starlight or swell with the force of a tidal wave, overwhelming the senses until the only instinct is to shrink from view. It manifests in many ways: hesitation before meeting new friends, breathlessness at speaking up in a group, or even a quiet dread of asking a seemingly simple question in class or at work. At its core, shyness is an internal state that thrives on self-critique, a hyper-awareness of one's own words and actions, tangled in imagined judgments from others. This can lead to a cycle of avoidance and apprehension that feels inescapable. Yet beneath the veneer of anxiety and self-doubt lies a deeply human experience, one that can be understood, gently unraveled, and ultimately transformed. A reflection on sensitivity and self-awareness. Shyness often begins with a vivid awareness of oneself about the environment. Many shy individuals possess a heightened sensitivity to social nuances. They pick up on subtle shifts in tone, minute changes in facial expression, or the gentle pulse of emotional currents that pass through a room. In some ways, this sensitivity can be considered a gift, offering richer insight into people's feelings, a deeper capacity for empathy, and an appreciation for details that might escape a more boisterous personality. Yet such sensitivity can also become a double-edged sword, as it can morph into a relentless magnifier of fears and insecurities. Imagine standing in a circle of acquaintances. Perhaps a flutter of self-consciousness arises as you notice the posture of the person beside you, the slight tension in someone's jaw, or the flicker of surprise in another's eyes. At that moment, the mind might create a cascade of worries. Did you say something awkward? Did your latest remark come across as strange or ill-informed? Is everyone else evaluating your every move? For a shy individual, these questions can form a swirling current of anxiety that propels them towards silence or withdrawal. Even as the conversation shifts naturally, the shy mind lingers on perceived missteps, replaying them over and over. Such an internal dynamic can lead to a well-worn cycle. Fear of social judgment leads to avoidance of certain interactions, which in turn reinforces the idea that one is incapable of navigating them successfully. Over time, this cycle breeds isolation, hindering the formation of new connections and the development of a healthy sense of self. Yet, it is possible to gently redirect these spirals of doubt. One of the first steps involves noticing when the mind embarks on its anxious parade and consciously choosing to respond with kindness. Rather than labeling yourself as flawed, incompetent, or doomed to remain silent, recognize that worry is part of your protective mechanism, a part of you that fears judgment, isolation, or ridicule. By acknowledging that this part is trying, in its misguided way, to keep you safe, you can begin to release any sense of shame attached to shyness. A garden metaphor for growth. Picture a garden in the earliest days of spring. The seeds are there in the soil, full of potential for vibrant growth. Sunlight touches the earth, rainfall nourishes the ground, and slowly, tender sprouts begin to break through. If the gardener rushes in with heavy hands, overwatering, digging too deep, yanking at fragile shoots, those sprouts may wither before they get a chance to bloom. Shyness can be approached similarly. If you demand immediate and radical transformation from yourself, forcing yourself into situations that feel overwhelmingly risky or criticizing every perceived slip, you risk damaging the tender roots of self-assurance. Instead, learning to approach shyness with patient care can set the stage for sustainable growth. You water the seeds of confidence through small, meaningful challenges. You nourish the soil of your inner landscape with self-compassion and understanding. Over time, those seeds flourish into stronger stems, thickening leaves, and eventually blossoms. Imagine Rowan, a child with a boundless imagination who loves to doodle and scribble fanciful stories. Perhaps Rowan's notebooks are filled with strange creatures, hidden kingdoms, and epic quests. Yet, when asked to speak during show and tell, Rowan's mind freezes. Palms grow clammy, words hide in the back of the throat, and a wave of embarrassment washes over. This is not because Rowan lacks creativity or has nothing of value to share, but because an avalanche of fear and self-consciousness has overtaken the moment. If Rowan's teacher or parents respond with impatience or irritation, that might deepen the fear. But imagine if Rowan is offered gentle encouragement and is guided to practice speaking about the sketches in smaller, less intimidating settings, perhaps just in front of a friend or a family member. Over time, that gentle nurturing can help Rowan learn to speak about what he or she loves without the shadow of panic. Each small success builds upon the last, and before long, Rowan's sketches might be shared with a wider audience. The stress response and social fears. To further understand the tapestry of shyness, it helps to delve into its physiological and emotional underpinnings. The body has an innate stress response system designed to handle threats. When faced with a wild animal or any life-threatening danger, this response prepares us to flee or fight. However, social fear often triggers the same internal alarm bells. The pounding heart, quickened breath, and tense muscles serve as signals that we feel endangered. Yet the danger is, in this case, a fear of judgment or rejection. We are worried about what others think, and in many ways, the possibility of social humiliation becomes as alarming as any physical threat. In such moments, the mind can paint dramatic worst-case scenarios. A trembling hand or a blush might become, in our imagination, a neon sign broadcasting our ineptitude. A pause in conversation might be interpreted as a sign that everyone is silently mocking us. These exaggerations are part of the anxious mind's arsenal, fueling the cycle of shyness by turning everyday interactions into potential minefields. Overcoming these exaggerated inner scripts often begins with recognizing them as just that. Scripts that are not necessarily accurate. A fleeting flush in one's cheeks is rarely the catastrophe we imagine. Moments of vulnerability can humanize us in the eyes of others, sometimes leading to empathy rather than scorn. The power of self-compassion. One of the most potent tools for softening the grip of shyness is self-compassion. The idea is to treat oneself with the same gentle understanding that a caring friend or mentor might provide. Instead of berating yourself for stumbling over a word, you silently affirm that it is only natural to feel nervous. Over time, such self-kindness helps dismantle the critical inner voice that insists you are never good enough or destined to fail. Compassion, unlike harsh self-critique, opens the door to learning. When the mind is entangled in criticism, it clings to negativity, making it difficult to assess the situation. However, if you approach the moment with empathy, acknowledging your effort and understanding your fear, you create space to learn from the situation without unnecessary shame. Consider the emotional relief that comes from hearing a supportive statement like, "It's okay to feel anxious, you're doing your best, and you'll find your footing." This kind of self-talk is not about denial or sugarcoating the challenges. It simply provides a gentler inner environment that allows growth. Think of a child learning to ride a bike. If that child hears nothing but criticism each time they wobble or fall, they may grow to hate the bike or fear the process. If, however, the child is encouraged, helped back onto the seat, reassured and given balance tips, they are far more likely to continue practicing until they can ride with confidence. We can extend that same patience and warmth to ourselves in social contexts. Sometimes shyness has roots in challenging past experiences. Perhaps a person felt dismissed, mocked, or belittled at a young age. The mind then creates protective strategies. If I don't speak, I won't be ridiculed. If I keep my true feelings hidden, I won't be hurt. Over time, these protective walls can become so familiar that we do not even question them anymore. Yet, as adults or older teens, continuing to follow these old patterns often prevents us from forming deeper connections and sharing our gifts. Recognizing these protective barriers as outdated self-defense mechanisms can be a crucial step. A memory of a harsh teacher or bullying peers can loom large in the psyche, but it need not define who you are in the present. By re-examining such memories through a lens of empathy, you might see that a younger version of you did what they had to do to feel safe. Now, as you stand in a different place in life, you can choose new approaches. The journey to let go of old hurts can involve journaling, therapy, or heartfelt talks with trusted friends or mentors. By shedding light on these formative moments, you diffuse their power. Emotions that hide in the corners of memory often hold sway simply because they have never been fully processed. By giving voice to them, acknowledging pain, mourning losses, or confronting fear, you gradually release their hold. This process is rarely instantaneous. It unfolds over time, sometimes leading to moments of raw vulnerability. Yet, within that vulnerability lies the seed of transformation. Stories as a pathway. One of the most beautiful aspects of human culture is our capacity for storytelling. Stories allow us to see reflections of ourselves in characters, plot lines, and metaphors, and they can illuminate pathways of growth and change. To illustrate how shyness can evolve into a more confident manner of being, consider Amandine, an aspiring actress in a coastal village. Her singing voice and theatrical presence amaze everyone who watches her perform. Yet, when she steps off the stage, she barely speaks above a murmur. She avoids gatherings and dreads spontaneous conversations. On stage, she knows her lines, her cues, and the character's motivations. It is a structured environment, allowing her to embody a role without fear of judgment upon her true self. Off stage, life is unpredictable, and the fear of saying something wrong or appearing foolish weighs heavily. Gradually, Amandine begins to see that she can transfer pieces of her stage confidence into everyday life. She practices mindful breathing as though she is preparing for a performance, reminding herself of the lines she would like to say. Greetings, small talk, honest observations. She imagines stepping into a role that is still her genuine self, but one supported by elements of the stage presence she has honed. Over time, these small, intentional acts of courage build upon one another. She realizes that, much like in theatre, people generally appreciate authenticity and passion. Mistakes or awkward moments seldom lead to disaster. They often lead to human connection, as others empathize with vulnerability. Through Amandine's story, we see that confidence need not be an all-or-nothing trait. It can be nurtured step by step, context by context. The contextual nature of shyness. Shyness is not a monolithic trait that remains the same in all settings. Many people who identify as shy notice that their degree of comfort varies widely depending on the environment. A person who is relaxed and playful among close friends may clam up around colleagues or authority figures. Another individual might feel perfectly at ease discussing academic or work-related topics, but struggles with casual social banter. Understanding that shyness is contextual can provide a liberating perspective. It means that you do have contexts in which you feel fairly comfortable, and that shyness is not an unchangeable personality flaw. By identifying areas where you feel more at ease, you can begin building bridges to more challenging situations. For instance, if you find that you thrive in small, intimate gatherings, perhaps you can start attending slightly larger events with a friend who understands your challenges. If you excel in structured contexts, like class presentations, because you know your subject thoroughly, you can apply similar preparation techniques to social events, rehearsing potential topics, or reminding yourself of conversation openers. Each time you cross from a comfortable zone to a slightly more demanding one, you expand your overall capacity to navigate social settings. This incremental approach can feel far more manageable than a sudden, forced leap into a large, unfamiliar crowd. Seeing yourself through an empathetic lens. People who struggle with shyness often focus on perceived shortcomings in social interactions. They replay conversations in their minds, fixating on every stutter, every pause, every uncertain laugh. Yet, from another's perspective, these flaws might have been barely noticeable or even endearing. Indeed, moments of earnestness or slight awkwardness can sometimes foster camaraderie as they signal sincerity. A wise and compassionate way to approach this is to consciously shift your inner dialogue. Instead of berating yourself for feeling nervous, you might pause and say, "I did my best in that moment, and it's all right if I pause to collect my thoughts." Or, "I might not have come across as smoothly as I wanted, but I'm learning." Over time, these gentle reframes can accumulate, forming a new baseline of self-perception. Goal setting and small victories. A powerful method of gradually overcoming shyness involves setting incremental, achievable goals. Rather than demanding a complete transformation overnight, focus on a series of smaller steps. These could range from initiating a brief conversation with a new person, making a phone call you've been dreading, or volunteering a comment in a meeting or classroom discussion. Each time you accomplish such a goal, celebrate that victory. Recognize that it represents real progress, a tangible move toward a more open, confident self. The brain responds to these successes, reinforcing the idea that social interactions are navigable even if they remain somewhat intimidating. Like threads woven into a tapestry, each small step strengthens the overall fabric of self-belief. Mindfulness and present moment awareness. Mindfulness, the practice of focusing attention on the present moment without judgment, can be a transformative ally in your journey away from shy self-consciousness. In states of social anxiety, the mind often leaps to the past, recalling embarrassing memories, or flings itself into the future, catastrophizing about what might go wrong. By grounding yourself in the present moment, you create a buffer against these racing thoughts. A simple exercise might involve taking a few slow, deep breaths before entering a social situation. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground, the fabric of your clothes against your skin, and the rhythm of your inhalations and exhalations. This does not eliminate the nervousness, but it helps prevent it from spiraling out of control. By anchoring your awareness in the present, you can respond more flexibly to whatever arises. Positive visualization and inner rehearsal. Positive visualization, though sometimes misunderstood, can be a potent tool. This approach is not about denying the existence of anxiety or discomfort, but about rehearsing more empowering possibilities in the mind. You imagine yourself walking into a social scenario with a calm demeanor, offering a genuine smile, and engaging in a relaxed conversation. By mental rehearsal, you gently train your mind to view such interactions as less threatening. Over time, the brain becomes somewhat accustomed to this scenario, and when you encounter the real event, the sense of novelty is reduced. This can lead to a slight increase in confidence and reduce the impulse to panic. Transforming your inner vocabulary. Language holds immense power in shaping how we perceive ourselves. If your self-talk is dominated by phrases like, "I'm terrible at talking to people," or "I can never do anything right in social situations," these words reinforce a narrative of helplessness. However, language is malleable. By intentionally introducing more balanced and supportive expressions, you begin to rewrite your internal script. Swap "I'm always anxious" for "I sometimes feel anxious, but I'm learning to face it." Replace "Everyone thinks I'm awkward" with "I'm not a mind reader and most people are kind or distracted by their concerns." These small shifts can have a surprisingly profound effect over time, chipping away at the rigid walls of negative self-belief, building authentic connections. For many shy individuals, the thought of networking events, large parties, or buzzing social scenes can be intimidating, yet forming genuine connections is one of the most uplifting remedies for shyness. Humans thrive on connection. We crave understanding, shared experiences, and the warmth of camaraderie. However, building these bonds need not start in the most challenging environments. You might begin in the spaces that resonate with your interests. If you love reading, join a book club. If you enjoy playing music, find a small group that gets together regularly to practice. If you're passionate about a particular craft, seek out others who share that passion. In such settings, you already share a common interest, which reduces the pressure of finding something to talk about. Over time, friendships formed this way can help you feel more comfortable expressing your thoughts and feelings, as you realize that your unique qualities are genuinely valued. Mentors and guides. Sometimes, the journey toward confidence becomes smoother when walking beside someone who has traversed the same terrain. A mentor could be a counselor, life coach, experienced colleague, or simply a friend who once struggled with shyness and has found ways to move past it. These individuals can provide guidance, reassurance, and perspectives that you might not have considered on your own. They can also serve as living proof that transformation is possible. Knowing that someone else overcame similar hurdles often sparks hope. If you are hesitant to confide in someone, you might start by reading personal accounts or memoirs of people who once battled paralyzing self-consciousness. Their stories can illuminate new strategies and shift your perspective on what is achievable. The role of self-care. Shyness can feel more acute when you are worn down, physically or emotionally. Taking care of your body and mind forms a foundation for social courage. Being well rested and nourished makes it easier to handle stresses. Engaging in activities that rejuvenate you, quiet walks in nature, painting, journaling, cooking, provides a necessary counterbalance to moments of intense social engagement. If life is filled with constant demands, your emotional resources for facing new or challenging situations might be limited. Setting aside consistent moments of rest, prioritizing a calming bedtime routine, and ensuring some form of gentle exercise can fortify your resilience against the stresses of self-consciousness. Keeping a journal. Journaling can be especially helpful for those seeking to unpack the layers of shyness. When you write about your experiences, fears, and successes, you create a space to observe yourself without immediate judgment. You might begin to notice patterns. Maybe your anxiety spikes in crowded rooms, but you feel fine in smaller gatherings. Or you realize that your fear intensifies after a long day at work. Journaling also allows you to track progress over time. You might discover that interactions that once seemed terrifying have gradually become easier. These written reflections offer tangible proof of growth, which can be both motivating and comforting. The nonlinear nature of growth. A common misconception about self-improvement is that it should follow a smooth, upward trajectory. In reality, personal growth, especially when it comes to something as deep-seated as shyness, tends to unfold in waves or cycles. You might have a burst of confidence that lasts several social events, only to find yourself unexpectedly anxious in a new situation. These moments do not negate your progress. They are simply reminders of your humanity and complexity. It's helpful to release the expectation of linear perfection and instead adopt a more compassionate view of the process. Every time you face a challenge, whether or not you handle it with perfect poise, you gain insight into your mind and reactions. That insight is invaluable for long-term development. Quiet strength and reflective presence. Culturally, there can be an emphasis on boldness, extroversion, and quick wit. Those who speak the loudest or dominate conversations might appear to hold a certain advantage. However, it is vital to recognize that quiet strength holds its power. There is beauty in reflective presence. Shy individuals often have a subtle awareness of emotional currents, the capacity to listen deeply, and a knack for empathy that can become a superpower in personal and professional settings. It's possible to remain inwardly reflective and still share your voice in a meaningful way. Rather than viewing shyness as a character flaw, you can come to see it as a unique lens through which you experience the world. The goal is not to erase your quieter tendencies, but to balance them so that they don't restrict your life or prevent you from forming enriching connections. Online spaces and deliberate participation. In modern times, digital platforms can feel overwhelming, though they also provide gentler entry points for shy people. Writing posts or messages thoughtfully in smaller forums or groups can help you practice expressing yourself without the immediacy of in-person conversation. This can serve as a stepping stone to offline interactions as you grow more accustomed to sharing your thoughts. At the same time, it's worth setting boundaries. The online world can be chaotic, filled with strong opinions and sometimes harsh critiques. Selecting platforms or communities that align with your interests and values can help nurture positive social experiences rather than add to your anxiety. Steady, ongoing choices. One of the most liberating realizations is that there is no singular finish line to overcoming shyness. It is not a matter of flipping a switch or achieving a single grand victory, after which you are forever free from self-consciousness. Instead, you make a series of ongoing choices. In each new interaction, you have the option to challenge the old fears, to engage rather than retreat. These choices accumulate, sculpting a version of yourself that increasingly believes in its capacity for connection. Even someone who appears radiantly confident likely has occasional moments of doubt or social uncertainty. The key distinction is that they have built enough experiences of competence and self-acceptance to move through those doubts without being paralyzed by them. A personal mantra. Developing a personal mantra can provide a quick mental anchor when nerves threaten to derail you. Something simple but affirming, like "I belong here and my voice matters," can be repeated silently during moments of tension. Over time, such statements become more than mere words. They become threads of belief woven into the psyche. You might adapt the mantra to different contexts. In a work environment, you might say, "I have valuable ideas to share." In a social setting, you could think, "I connect with others by being genuine." This practice can help shift your focus away from catastrophic predictions and toward a more grounded sense of self. Support networks. While introspection is essential, you need not shoulder the entire journey on your own. Friends, family members, or support groups can offer encouragement, accountability, and perspective. If you have a trusted friend who knows about your challenges with shyness, you might set small goals together, like each of you initiating a conversation with someone new at an event. This shared endeavor can turn an intimidating scenario into a supportive challenge. If you hit a roadblock, a friend can remind you of your strengths and progress, nudging you to keep trying rather than retreat. Turtles and meadows, an allegory. Visualize a turtle that remains tucked within its shell. The shell is cozy, safe, and familiar. Yet just beyond a short stretch of open ground lies a meadow of lush, sweet greenery, tempting but inaccessible unless the turtle emerges. The turtle yearns for that fresh abundance, but the fear of exposure is potent. Eventually, the turtle ventures out, inch by inch. It might retreat at the sound of a rustle, but gradually it gets closer to the meadow. Over time, the turtle comes to know that the open space, while not entirely without risk, also brims with nourishment and possibility. Overcoming shyness mirrors this incremental dance. Each foray into new territory is an exercise in courage. Sometimes you may dart back into your shell, but each small journey expands your familiarity with the wider world. Humor and lightness. It might sound counterintuitive, but humor can be a powerful antidote to the heaviness of shyness. Being able to laugh at oneself in a gentle, accepting way can diffuse the sting of awkward moments. Perhaps you stumble over a word or forget someone's name. Instead of spiraling into self-reproach, you might smile and say, "Words can be tricky, can't they?" Or, "I have a memory like a butterfly sometimes." This small injection of playful self-awareness can soften the situation for everyone, making it clear that minor slips do not define you. People often respond positively to sincerity and humility, sensing that you are comfortable enough to own your human quirks. Honoring the strengths that accompany shyness. Shyness is sometimes paired with unique strengths, such as the capacity for deep reflection, empathy, patience, and careful observation. These qualities can lead to a richer understanding of relationships and thoughtful insights in creative or professional pursuits. Many brilliant artists, writers, scientists, and leaders have described themselves as shy, introverted, or socially anxious at times. Yet they have channeled their quiet nature into their work, finding powerful ways to communicate ideas once they feel safe. By seeing your shy traits as part of a broader tapestry of talents, you shift the focus from limitation to possibility. You can preserve the strengths of your introspective nature while learning to engage more comfortably when you choose. Active choice in solitude or engagement. Overcoming shyness does not require becoming a constant extrovert. You do not need to be loud or gregarious at all times. Instead, you aim to expand the range of your choices. If you decide to spend a quiet evening alone, you do so from a place of self-care rather than retreat. If you decide to attend a social gathering, you do it with the knowledge that you are capable of genuine engagement, even if the thought still sends a small jolt of nerves. The difference lies in agency. Rather than being ruled by fear, you gain the capacity to choose the level of interaction that fits your emotional bandwidth at any given time. The adventurer's mindset. Think of yourself as an adventurer exploring an uncharted realm. Shyness might appear as thick vines or cliffs that initially block your path. Yet beyond these natural barriers lie expansive vistas, hidden clearings, and glimmers of sunlight on unknown horizons. Each time you navigate a patch of tangled vines or carefully climb a rocky slope, you learn more about your abilities. The confidence you develop in one part of the journey feeds into the next. While you may never feel entirely free of trepidation, the goal is to cultivate enough trust in your resourcefulness to keep venturing onward. Reflecting on milestones. It can be deeply meaningful to document your social milestones, big or small. Maybe you dared to speak up in a meeting for the first time, or you introduced yourself to someone who later became a friend, or you voiced an opinion that you previously would have kept hidden. Writing these milestones in a journal, or sharing them with a supportive confidant, helps you see how far you have come. On days when shyness seems to creep back in full force, revisiting these achievements can remind you that you have already displayed courage and grown in tangible ways. Embracing leadership in quiet ways. Though it may seem paradoxical, shy individuals can become remarkable leaders. Leadership does not always require a booming voice or relentless assertiveness. It can emerge from deep listening, thoughtful decision-making, and a focus on inclusivity. In a professional setting, a quiet leader might excel at ensuring all voices are heard, or at offering empathetic guidance that fosters strong team cohesion. In social settings, a quiet leader might organize meaningful activities, orchestrate gatherings with a close-knit sense of community, or foster an environment of understanding. Stepping into leadership roles, even in small, comfortable contexts, can accelerate the dismantling of an identity wholly defined by shyness. Each act of guiding or facilitating showcases your ability to rise above mere inhibition, revealing strengths you may not have known you possessed. When professional help is needed. There are occasions when shyness or social anxiety becomes so intense that it severely interferes with daily life, preventing one from attending school or work or causing overwhelming dread even in simple social scenarios. In such cases, speaking with a mental health professional can be invaluable. Therapeutic modalities such as cognitive behavioral therapy can help reframe negative thought patterns and gradually desensitize you to anxiety-provoking situations. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of self-care and courage. Professionals trained in anxiety-related issues can offer tailored strategies that accelerate your progress and address any underlying emotional factors. Celebrating yourself along the way. The road out of deep shyness is often winding, with triumphs interspersed with setbacks. Through it all, make sure to celebrate yourself for each step taken. Applaud your willingness to try, even if the outcome is not flawless. Acknowledge that confronting fear requires bravery. This process of self-celebration need not be elaborate. It can be as simple as pausing at the end of the day to say, "Today, I took a risk by asking my neighbor about their day, and it felt good to connect." These small acknowledgements anchor your efforts in positivity, reinforcing that you are capable of growth. Shyness, as a dance between fear and longing. It can be illuminating to see shyness as a dance, a delicate interplay between the desire for connection and the fear of exposure. The heart yearns for companionship, for understanding, for being known, yet the mind hesitates, whispering cautions about judgment or ridicule. This tension can feel excruciating at times, like being caught between two strong currents. Yet within that tension lies the seeds of profound personal development. Each time you choose to lean toward connection, even if your voice trembles, you reinforce the belief that vulnerability can lead to meaningful exchanges. You discover that many interactions are far more forgiving than your fears might suggest. Harmonizing shyness with personal expression. Shyness need not be an obstacle to creative expression. Many shy individuals are prolific artists, poets, or craftspeople, able to channel their most intense emotions into beautiful forms of communication. If direct speech feels intimidating, painting a picture or writing a heartfelt piece can allow you to share your inner world. Over time, noticing how people respond positively to your creations can boost your confidence in your voice. Eventually, you might find that you want to talk more openly about the art you have made, the poems you have written, or the music you have composed. The burden of comparison, a major stumbling block for many on the path to overcoming shyness, is the habit of comparing themselves to others. Observing peers or colleagues who seem to slip effortlessly into conversation can exacerbate feelings of inadequacy, yet it is essential to remember that every person has a private inner life. The individual who appears brimming with charisma might harbor insecurities you cannot see. Comparison in this sense is rarely fair. Instead of measuring yourself against external displays of confidence, focus on your internal benchmarks. Are you more at ease speaking with strangers now than you were last season? Have you found ways to gently assert your needs more than you used to? Those are the progress markers that matter. Reinterpreting awkwardness. Awkward moments are nearly universal, even though our anxious minds can perceive them as catastrophic. Rather than viewing awkwardness as a personal failing, you might begin to see it as part of the human dance of interaction. Even highly sociable individuals commit social gaffes or misread cues at times. Laughter, a simple apology, or moving on can often diffuse the moment. Moreover, awkwardness can sometimes breed authenticity. When we let down the veneer of perfect composure, we allow others to see our genuine selves, and in that authenticity, deeper connections can form. Tapping into quiet confidence. A quiet confidence looks different from the flamboyant energy of a gregarious extrovert. It often shows up in the form of steady eye contact, the willingness to share an honest perspective, or the capacity to listen intently without feeling inferior. Learning to recognize these signs of quiet confidence within yourself can shift your self-image. You might be more grounded, more empathetic, or more reflective than you ever gave yourself credit for. Over time, acknowledging these qualities helps you realize that confidence does not need to be loud. It can be gentle, yet unmistakable. Breaking down. High-stakes situations. Certain social scenarios feel particularly high stakes. Presentations, job interviews, meeting significant people in a friend's life, or large family gatherings. One approach to these settings is to break them into smaller, more manageable parts. For a presentation, you might practice with a friend, or record yourself to get comfortable with the flow. For a job interview, you might research common questions and rehearse potential answers in a calm setting. For a big family reunion, you might identify a few relatives you feel closer to and plan to spend time with them first. By approaching these scenarios methodically, you reduce the sense of being overwhelmed and increase your chances of feeling prepared, learning from relapses. There may come a day when, after significant progress, you suddenly find yourself retreating at a social event, stammering, or feeling the old wave of self-conscious fear. Such relapses can be disheartening, especially if you believe you have moved past your shyness. Yet, it's crucial to view these moments with understanding. Emotional patterns can resurface, especially under stress or when we are in an environment that triggers long-held anxieties. Instead of labeling the event as a failure, see it as a learning opportunity. Which circumstances triggered your response? How can you handle similar situations differently next time? Such reflections ensure that each stumble still propels you forward in wisdom. Drawing wisdom from quiet traditions. Certain traditions, from monastic communities to philosophical circles, have long celebrated the virtues of silence and contemplation. They invite members to observe thoughts, reflect on inner states, and engage in quiet service to others. While these traditions do not necessarily focus on curing shyness, they showcase that quietness can be a gateway to deep insight, creativity, and peace. Embracing your introspective tendencies need not conflict with overcoming shyness. Instead, you can integrate what you learn from self-reflection into your social interactions, sharing pearls of insight when it feels right. Artistic and symbolic expressions of progress. At times, overcoming shyness can feel like an intangible process. One unique approach might be to symbolize your progress artistically or symbolically. You could create a collage representing the hurdles you've faced and the breakthroughs you've achieved. You might choose an object, a stone, a token, or a piece of jewelry to carry with you as a reminder of your commitment to growing beyond your fears. Such symbols can act as touchstones during moments of heightened anxiety, reminding you of your inner resolve and the progress you have already made. Acknowledging cultural differences. In some cultural contexts, quietness and deference are valued, while in others, bold self-assertion is encouraged. Understanding how your culture or familial background frames communication can clarify whether you are shy by nature or simply adhering to norms learned over time. Sometimes, confusion arises when an individual from a culture that prizes reticence interacts in a place where being outspoken is expected, or vice versa. Navigating these differences may call for introspection regarding which behaviors stem from personal shyness and which come from cultural tradition. Recognizing this distinction can lighten the burden of self-judgment. Finding balance between humility and assertiveness. Humility is an admirable trait, often associated with generosity of spirit and willingness to learn from others. However, when humility slides into self-effacement or an inability to acknowledge one's strengths, it can keep a person trapped in shyness. Striking a balance means honoring the virtues of modesty while also affirming that you have valid insights and deserve to be heard. Practicing assertive communication can bridge this gap. Assertiveness does not imply aggression or self-importance. It simply means expressing your needs, boundaries, and perspectives in a calm, respectful manner. Learning a few key assertive phrases or techniques can empower you to engage more freely, even if the old pulse of shyness still flickers. Role play and practice. Some individuals find benefit in role-playing exercises as a way to experiment with more confident social behaviors. This can be done with a friend, a therapist, or even alone by imagining different scenarios. You might simulate striking up a conversation at a party or responding to a difficult question at work. Through repetition, you train your mind and body to feel more at ease in these situations. Role-playing allows you to make mistakes in a safe environment, refining your approach before stepping into real-life scenarios. The joy of imperfect interactions. One of the greatest revelations in learning to cope with shyness is discovering that there is a surprising joy in imperfect interactions. When you drop the need for flawless eloquence, you create space for spontaneous humor, genuine expression, and moments of real human connection. You may trip over a word or laugh nervously, but if you remain open, you can pivot the moment into shared amusement or curiosity. In that sense, the measure of a successful interaction is not in how flawlessly you present yourself, but in whether you engage in a meaningful, honest way. Allowing silence to be comfortable. For many who are shy, silence in conversation can feel excruciating. The pause might be interpreted as a personal failure, as though you are expected to fill every gap with witty banter. Yet silences can be natural, even meaningful. They allow participants to reflect on what has been said. They give introverted individuals time to gather their thoughts. Learning to tolerate or even welcome these pauses can transform how you experience social exchanges. Instead of hastening to fill the gap, you might take a breath, smile gently, or ask a thoughtful follow-up question. Embracing the lull can turn an awkward hush into a moment of genuine presence. Shyness and the creative edge. Shy individuals often possess rich imaginations. The inward focus that comes with a tentative approach to social life can also spark creativity, as it encourages deep introspection. Whether you dabble in writing, painting, crafting, composing music, or any other artistic avenue, your thoughtful nature can imbue your art with unique subtlety and depth. As you share your creativity, even in small ways, you begin to realize that your shyness does not block your ability to communicate. It might enhance your capacity to express feelings and perspectives that others rarely articulate. This realization can reinforce self-esteem, providing another channel for connecting with the world. Observing role models. If you look carefully, you will find individuals who radiate gentle confidence, who are not the loudest or most theatrical in the room, yet command respect through their authenticity and quiet poise. Observing such role models, whether they are in your community, found among historical figures, or portrayed in literature, can provide examples of how one can be both reserved and self-assured. Study their mannerisms, note how they speak, and try to sense the inner calm that informs their presence. They show that there is no single way to embody confidence, and that your quieter nature can be just as compelling. Navigating the nuances of fear. Sometimes the intensity of fear surrounding social situations converge on panic. The heart races, breathing becomes shallow, and thoughts spiral into the worst interpretations. Learning techniques to regulate your physiological response can be life-changing. Deep diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or grounding techniques are all tools that can help calm the storm in your body. You might remind yourself, this feeling is temporary. I can weather this wave of anxiety. Having a few such strategies in your mental toolbox can restore enough equilibrium to allow you to engage rather than flee. Releasing expectations of perfection. The pursuit of perfection can be especially crippling for those who are shy. The desire to speak flawlessly, appear composed, and avoid any trace of embarrassment can become a straitjacket. Recognizing that perfection is not only impossible but also unnecessary can liberate you. Real human interactions are messy and full of tangents, interruptions, laughter, and misunderstandings. By welcoming these realities, you let go of the heavy burden of performing at an impossibly high standard. Instead, you allow yourself to be present, to flow with the natural give and take of conversation, and to connect in an authentically human way. Finding your authentic voice. At the core of overcoming shyness is the quest for authenticity. Beneath the fear and self-doubt lies a voice that is distinctly yours, infused with your values, insights, and humor. This voice might be gentle, lyrical, philosophical, or boldly imaginative. The purpose of diminishing shyness is not to become someone you are not, but to free that true voice from the shackles of inhibition. Each time you speak up, offering a genuine thought, or sharing a piece of your inner world, you honor your unique perspective. Over time, the moments of holding back decrease, replaced by a sense of comfort in simply being yourself. Revisiting the maze, returning to the opening metaphor, shyness often resembles a labyrinth of unseen corridors. Each hallway might lead to another dead end of self-critique or insecurity. The walls of the maze feel confining, the twists disorienting. Yet with patience and determination, you can learn the layout of this labyrinth. You discover that some corridors lead to spaces of light, and that even the dead ends teach you something about your thought patterns. Eventually the walls seem less imposing as you realize you hold the power to navigate your mind. You might never demolish the maze, but you can learn to walk its paths with greater ease, stepping out into open fields whenever you choose. Unfolding into the future. Shyness is not a static condition. It shifts with time, life experiences, and personal growth. The timid child who once hid behind a parent's leg might become the thoughtful friend whose empathy is a balm to many. The reserved teen who dreaded group projects might grow into a reliable colleague whose quiet leadership fosters a supportive work environment. The adult who once avoided social functions might find joy in selective gatherings, cultivating a circle of deep friendships. Each stage of life offers new chances to practice stepping beyond your comfort zone and discovering new facets of yourself in the process. A tapestry of courage. Ultimately, overcoming shyness is about weaving together many threads: self-compassion, mindful presence, gradual exposure to challenges, reframed self-talk, and the affirmation of your inherent worth. Each thread contributes a different color and a distinct texture until a tapestry emerges that reflects not only your strengths, but also your capacity for growth. Even the thread of vulnerability, which once seemed like a source of weakness, takes on a luminous quality when viewed as a space for human connection. In the end, the journey toward overcoming shyness is a soft, ongoing unfolding of who you are at heart. It's about stepping beyond the familiar edges of fear, guided by a willingness to venture into deeper connections and greater self-expression. This unfolding does not discard the quieter sides of your nature. On the contrary, it integrates them in a way that harmonizes your inward reflections with outward engagements. You learn to embrace moments of silence without shame. You discover that a trembling voice can still articulate beautiful truths. You realize that your presence has value, that your perspective can enrich conversations, and that your empathy and attentiveness can be gifts to others. Every step along the way is a testament to your resilience. Each time you risk a conversation, voice an opinion, or smile at a new acquaintance, you water the seeds of confidence in your inner garden. The blossoms might be slow to open, but when they do, their fragrance is unmistakable, carrying the subtle perfume of bravery, gentleness, and self-acceptance. In time, you come to see shyness not as a cage, but as one aspect of a rich personal landscape, an element that can coexist with courage, creativity, and connection. So, as you stand poised on the threshold of your next social endeavor, heart fluttering, mind swirling with a mix of hope and apprehension, take a moment to anchor yourself in the present. Notice the ground beneath your feet, the breath in your lungs, the subtle pulse of life within your body. Remind yourself that every conversation is a new beginning, an opportunity to share a fragment of your unique spirit with the world. And if your voice wavers or your cheeks flush, let that be a sign of your humanity rather than a mark of shame. Overcoming shyness is a process of learning to offer your voice gently yet steadily, trusting that the world has space for it, that others can meet you with compassion, and that you are capable of illuminating your corner of life with your presence. Quiet, thoughtful, and beautifully real. Allow yourself to keep growing in your rhythm with each kind word you speak to yourself, each incremental risk you take, and each ounce of patience you bring to the journey. In doing so, you step closer to the essence of confidence, a quiet, deeply rooted belief in your right to exist, to belong, and to be heard. Let the hush of shyness coexist with the sparkle of your spirit, each dimension informing the other, until what emerges is a harmonious whole, shy yet brave, quiet yet resonant, reflective yet ready to share. That is the gift of your unfolding, and it has been within you all along.